Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome back to Talk of the Devils, brought to you by talkofthedevils.co.uk, your number one Manchester United podcast. I was saying to the boys backstage, I was really concerned at half time that we'd have absolutely nothing to talk about. But fortunately, that second half took us all by surprise, very much end to end. Villa obviously huffed and puffed, got a couple of goals, but we ended up coming out on top. And great substitutions today. I feel like the substitutions were something we should talk about. We were talking about Garnacho backstage. Obviously, we tried to sort of temper our excitement with him, and obviously Lee will give us a bit more background on that as well. But he was absolutely exceptional. But Lee, thank you for coming on, buddy. I hope you're very well. How are you feeling after that result? One sec. Start again, sorry.
I said it felt a lot better after the second half than it did after the first half, mate. I nearly fell asleep watching that first half, if I'm being honest. But yeah, the second half, it was much better. Where we stepped up the pace a little bit, like you just mentioned, and then the substitution helped a lot. Again, Phil's just texted me there. Be on in 2 minutes. A couple of the substitutions helped out massively. I think a couple of players went missing again. Donny van der Beek being one of them. We
will talk about him, yeah.
I'm sure we'll talk about every player individually, but that's 3 games on a run now where, it's just, I want the lad to do well every time. I think we all, as a United fan base, I think we all want the same thing. We want him to come good, but he goes missing too much. He actually runs to the man too close to me and he struggles to find space. But yeah, overall, we'll take that performance in the second half and we move on.
Yeah, absolutely right. Stu, great to have you on again, my man.
Thank you.
I hope you're well too. Anything to add to that and how you feeling?
No, I tend to agree with Lee. I thought, the first half, wow, crikey, that was a tough watch. I mean, we've had some tough watches over the past few years, but crikey, that was awful. Whether there was a hangover from what happened at the weekends when we got a real hiding, let's be fair, I don't really know. But all of a sudden, Ten Hag gets something at half time and it's a completely different game. The thing about football is that's exactly how it can go sometimes. You can really huff and puff in a game and then suddenly just something switches. And the catalyst today was Watkins' first goal, which amazingly or not amazingly, Maguire was getting hammered for on Twitter. I mean, the poor lad, it was a brilliant ball. It was just a great crossing from, was it Young, Ashley Young on the right? He whipped it in. But anyway.
The corner.
Yeah. No,
Douglas Luiz.
Yeah. And I think from that point of view, it was way too easy for Villa. Handball or not, doesn't really matter. Some are given, some are not. They break through the middle and they score, and it is what it is. But we reacted. That was the key to the game for us tonight. We reacted brilliantly. And I thought from that minute onwards, Bruno got the bit between his teeth and thought, right, this ain't happening again. And then he took control of the game single-handedly. And he's absolutely right. DVB, Donny van der Beek. Oh, wow. There's a player in there. We all know there's a player in there, but he just isn't taking his chances. And
no.
But you only need one player on occasions just to say, right, enough's enough, lads, and I'll deal with it. And then I woke Rashford up properly. And it just woke up a lot of players. McTominay was average most of the game. I thought Fred was average most of the game. The substitutions were key for sure. Eriksen's calmness when he comes on the pitch, Casemiro's calmness when he comes on the pitch. I thought it was excellent. But no, great win. We get a win on Sunday. We can relax then, can't we, till late December, and away we go. But I think Ten Hag will be frustratedly happy, if it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Mad second half, but I'm absolutely elated. One of those, again, it really felt like a cup game, didn't it? And really scrappy. Weren't sure which way it was going, but you're right. I think, as soon as we went behind, we really started to sort of make something. And you're right. I think that it was huge. It was a huge miss at the weekend, missing Bruno Fernandes. There are times when we get frustrated with him and I've said this so many times, he's a risky player. he tends to play riskier things, and therefore, because it's a risk, you're going to lose the ball and frustrate us at times. But when he's on song and the rest of the team are playing in and around him, and he's really sort of taking the game by the scruff of his neck, you can see the difference. And I think that was the biggest miss from the weekend, which concerns me. We don't talk about a number 10 enough. We talk about we needing a right back, we talk about needing a striker, but I really feel like we need someone that's able to be a substitution for Bruno. Donny van der Beek can't do that. We've seen that now on numerous occasions. Phil, great to have you with us, my man. I hope you're very, very well, and I hope you're feeling as happy as we are. But talk to me about how you're feeling after that one.
Yeah, I think obviously I don't know what the guys have said, but for me it was tale of two halves. We've not had that for quite a while, but I think obviously first half, both teams, really poor. The passing, the creativity, the sort of end product in that first half from both sides was really poor. In contrast, I think the second half was total opposite. I think once the substitutions were made early, I think that changed the game. And as you said, obviously looking at the game the other day against Aston Villa, I think Bruno made a massive difference today, just with his energy and his endeavour and his creativity. I think sometimes in that first half we was maybe trying to play the long ball in behind too often. Obviously a greasy surface, that ball's obviously not going to happen. But obviously in the second half it paid off for us there in a couple of occasions. And it was a great second half performance, I think, by the team. And a few things that obviously we can improve on, and the things that we'll probably analyse and didn't go too well. Obviously, I think it was a sloppy goal to concede. The first one against maybe the run of play in that second half, but they've shown a bit of character there to come back. I think obviously in previous times, Eds would have gone down there, and just shows you how much and how far we've come really in terms of being able to have that mental strength and be able to sort of still feel like we can get something out of a game. So overall really pleased, and I think the second half scoring 4 goals was brilliant. Didn't see that coming, to be honest, after the first half, but really good to sort of get 4 goals on last game at Old Trafford before the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely right. Lots of people in the comments talking about Donny. We will come to him in a moment. Wayne in the comments, great to have you with us. Evening, lads. I hope you're all well. Martial, cheers up the team from February in here. Lots of you on Twitter. Obviously, we can't see any of your comments, so come over to youtube.com/Talk of the Devils. We want to be able to read them out and discuss in here. You made a point, actually, Phil, about mentality and spirit and not dropping our heads. Whilst we have to look at everything in small chunks, the progression that we are making. We've spoken about Ten Hag and how happy we are with him. We've spoken about, off the field to a certain extent, how he's dealing with press conferences, all these little bits, how he's making the correct substitutions. We've spoken about previously Ollie not always making the right substitutions, and I feel that Ten Hag is doing that now. You expect that from a manager, but all these little things are baby steps. But a big thing for me, and you hit the nail on the head, is that we are able to pick ourselves back up. We are able to not drop our heads, and that was that shone through today. And I think we have to also remember that, again, all these things add up to make the bigger picture, and that was something we did very, very well today. Wayne says, thought it was a good cup tie, as close as we've seen to ETH's impact on the side he inherited. Not great, to be honest, but great reaction second half. Absolutely right. We were talking backstage very briefly, Lee, about Garnacho. Obviously, we've spoken about him several times. I've had several conversations. I'm sure all you guys have too. It's very easy to get carried away, and you used a classic example, Elanga. When he burst onto the scene, Rashford, similar thing, but he had obviously a bit more longevity with how well he was playing. But Elanga had a few good months, and there's a very fine line between playing too much, nurturing them, and obviously you will know this, and Phil, of course, better than anyone. What's the best way to overcome that now? What do you expect going forward? I'll come to you about Lee first.
Like we said backstage, mate, is what we're seeing up to now, and what we've seen in the 23s, and the glimpses we've seen of him in the first team. Looks like he's going to be an exceptional talent. Like I said, what we mentioned backstage, I just hope that he doesn't get pushed a little bit too early, too soon. You see it a lot nowadays with, these young lads who literally get chucked in at the deep end. And I know that if you're good enough, you're old enough. That's the old cliche saying. But sometimes you can, if a player who's light in the under 23s up gets chucked in at the deep end, and he's not doing as well as he's doing in the 23s, and he loses a little bit of confidence, that can affect him for the next 2 or 3 seasons. I think his worthy needs to be. I think Eric Ten Hag's handling him well. He's in and out the team. He's in and around the training ground. He's learning. He's still learning his trade. He's a young lad, and he's keep blooding him in. But if you remember years ago, that's what Alex Ferguson did really, really well with the young lads. He didn't just chuck you in and that's it. You kept your place. He'd chuck you in. He'd bring you out. He'd put you back with the 23s. He'd let you train with them for a week. At Villa, tell you exactly the same. And at the end, the cream rises to the top. And like you say, he's an exceptional talent. And I think if he's handled rightly and handled correctly, he's going to be a very, very good player for Man United for a lot of years to come.
Yeah, good points, well made, and absolutely right. Phil, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I agree. I think Lee's hit the nail on the head there. I think the biggest benefit that I'm seeing, obviously, from a person who's been in a similar situation in terms of being in and around the first team, and just I think you can see now that the confidence that he's got with training with the first team on a regular basis, just playing with them better players, and obviously, making that step up, you've got to sort of learn quick, and you've no time really to sort of, relax. He'll be, loving that every single day, training with the players that he's playing with. And, he's expressing himself when he comes onto the pitch. And, when you're young, you don't really get fazed much. But I think, as Lee said, the manager needs to manage him and not make sure he doesn't play too many games too soon. Just keep dipping him in and out, making him have a little taste of it, and hopefully that'll be the way forward. I think we've seen it with certain players over the years where maybe they've been in and around it, and then it's not really worked. They've gone out on loan and they've sort of fizzled out. For me, I think with Garnacho, I think at the moment he's probably better playing certain games and then coming back out the team a little bit, but training and staying with the squad all the time. And I think Pep Guardiola did it with Phil Foden. He refused to send him out on loan, and I think he's reaped the benefits of that by staying at City, training with the players he was training with, and he's obviously an exceptional talent, and I'm hoping that that'll be a similar situation with Garnacho.
Yeah, we have to. You have to remember, and you two will be able to tell us all firsthand. As a youngster, it's very difficult, obviously, to be able to make your way into that first team, and there are so many young players, a huge amount of young players, and only a small minority take their opportunities. As you say, a lot of players, you think back to Fraser Campbell, Danny Welbeck, and several others, Makeda, and a few others that went out on loan because it's very difficult to make yourself embedded into that team. And you've got to remember as well, over the years, we've had so many inside forwards, Rashford, Martial, someone who I won't mention his name, Elanga, Shoretiri, and then of course Garnacho. There's a huge plethora of that type of player coming through, and it's very difficult. And I think fundamentally it's just important that whenever you're given those opportunities, you absolutely take them. And to be honest with you, as much as Stu and I have tried to take it with a pinch of salt and say, let's not get overexcited, he's done just that over the last few weeks. He's been exciting. He's done the right things, and hopefully that continues. But Stu, do you want to add any more to that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the lads are a better position than I am to talk about that level of football. But one thing I would say is that March is going into a more healthier dressing room than what he would have done 18 months ago.
Yeah.
If he'd been in a similar, position, looking in that dressing room, you've got likes of Eriksen, you've got Casemiro, you've got world. I hate world class, and I do. So I'm going to use this very, very lightly. You've got players that have been at the top of their profession for a long, long time, know what it takes to be a professional footballer at the elite level, and are able to pass that down to a younger player. The lads are both right, and I spoke about this a couple of weeks ago. As good as precocious as the talent young Garnacho is, if he isn't handled right, as the lads have said, then it could be a problem for his future development later on in his life. And I tend to agree with Phil. Don't send him on loan. Keep him in and around the squad, but take him out of certain games and play him in certain games. I'm not one for stats, as you well know. Games unfold in many different ways. Stats are just a very, very small part of the end result. But he looked like he had a 100% accuracy rate today. I think it was something like 13 passes, 13 completions, plus his 2 assists. So, for a substitute to come on and perform like that at any age is terrific. But he's just going to make sure that what he's doing it right. There was rumours of attitude issues right at the very beginning of the season, and you can't have that. So that's why potentially we haven't seen him, because you're going to quash that immediately. You can't have somebody giving it the big one every time they walk into training until you achieve something. There's very, very few players. Even when the lads were playing, there's very few players that could command that kind of presence. The guys were in and around, when some of the greats of Manchester United were there, and, these guys are looking at them and playing with them, training with them when they got the opportunity. And you've got to learn. You've got to learn. So I hope he learns. I hope the fan base can understand football a little bit better than what they see through their hearts and that. And then let's hope he develops. I'd love him to go to the World Cup, not to play, but just purely to get
the experience.
A
bit like they did with Walcott, actually, when he was 16.
Yeah.
They didn't play 1 minute of it, but I think just going to something like that can really bring a lot of valuable experience.
Well, I think it'd be great. I mean, Martinez is obviously going to be in the squad. Messi is going to be in the squad. He's got some excellent footballers we can learn from. So he's going out of one environment into another and just watch, learn. Just watch and learn. And fingers crossed, we may just have that one player. But it's too early to say, I'm afraid, at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Sorry, Stu, I'm going to come in with some stats here. 28 minutes, 23 touches, 13 out of 13 passes completed. You're absolutely right with that. 2 big chances created, 2 assists, 2 shots. That's quite something for any player. Doesn't matter how much experience you've got and what an impact he made today. I'm going to talk about a little bit of a negative now. I wanted to get your views on this, Phil and Lee. I don't know if you've had this conversation before, so I apologise. But Donny van der Beek, it's a very, very difficult subject for me, this, because I am an absolute lover of the man. I think he's technically absolutely brilliant. Watched him a lot at Ajax, was very excited about coming in. Not really a like-for-like replacement of Grealish. But that was basically the alternative that we brought in. And unfortunately, for whatever reason, I mean, Stu and I have spoken about this before, a lot of the time you have to look what he does off the ball. Whilst he hasn't had a huge impact on the ball, he creates so many spaces for other players, driving other players out of position to create pockets for other players. And he does that a lot, and he does do that very well. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But of course, that doesn't contribute to stats and showing what everyone sees. Do you know what I mean? And it's very difficult, because I do like him. I really want him to have a bit more of a run in order to gain that experience and be able to hit the ground running, but he hasn't had that. Where do you think it goes for him now? I want to get all your thoughts, and everybody in the comments as well. Give me your thoughts on your feelings on Donny and what will happen. But Lee, I'll come to you first. Do you think it's probably time up for Donny van der Beek now?
Yeah, mate, I do. I'm exactly the same as you. I've been championing the guy since he come. He seems like a real good guy. He's someone who you want him to succeed and you want him to do well. And you could think of not a better man to progress within United and to reap the rewards. But he's just not doing it, is he? He's been given a little 3-match run now. You mentioned the off the ball stuff, and I've watched that tonight a lot. To see the positions he was taking up, but he seems to get too close to the play of the ball, and he struggles to find space. And instead of, I seen a couple of times he did spin and he didn't get the ball, and whether he's getting discerned because he's not getting the ball when he's making the runs or not, I'm not sure. But for me, he seems to come too close to the play, and then when the play gets switched, he doesn't seem to break the net to get the next ball. He just seems to trot and sell it through the game a little bit. Yeah, for me, mate, is I don't even think. I think we could have better squad players, if I'm being honest. I think we could probably get better players who don't play every game, who could probably do a better job than him at the moment in time, who's just a squad player, and it hurts me to say it because I really want him to do well, but I just don't think he's cut out for the Premier League. I mean, he went to Everton. I know he got an injury, but what I'm led to believe I've got quite a few mates who are Everton fans with season tickets there. He didn't do much there either. He's come back, not proven nothing again, so he's probably more suited, like you say, to another league. What isn't got the tenacity, and like I said, the Premier League, you've got to be on it every minute of that 90 minutes. You can't take a rest. You can't have time for a breather or hide for 5 minutes. It's not that kind of league. You've got to be at it from minute one to injury time. And I don't think he's that kind of player. Technically gifted, massively technically gifted. Does the simple things very well. Create, like you say, off the ball runs. But no, for me, mate, I think it's time up.
Yeah, and I think you sort of mentioned it there. I think it's probably a classic case of not going to make it in this league, unfortunately. I think he goes pretty much anywhere else, probably Italy because it's quite slow paced. Probably Germany. I think he'd absolutely tear it up at someone like Dortmund or Bayern even. Bayern wouldn't be in for him necessarily, but I think he would absolutely kill it elsewhere, and it's just such a shame, isn't it? Phil, have you got anything to add to what Lee said there?
Yeah, well, no, I think my feelings are pretty mutual with what Lee's just said. I've always wanted him to do well. I think he seems like a nice bloke, but for whatever reason, it's just not really worked for him. Yeah, I think obviously the Premier League is a relentless league, and you've got to be on it every single minute, as Lee's just said. And I think for me, he just doesn't seem to sort of have that DNA where the Premier League's got a certain characteristic of a player, and I think for me he doesn't quite fit that. And I think obviously he's not had a run in the team for a long while, so these 3 games that we've seen him was probably his last opportunity. And I think although he's going to be rusty because he's not played for such a long time, I don't think he's done enough on or off the ball. And for me, I think he's been handed an opportunity to maybe save his career at Man United and do something in the 3 games. And I don't really think he's done enough on or off the ball. So yeah, I agree with you. I think if he goes over to Germany or La Liga or somewhere like that, I think he'd do really well. A different style of football. As I say, he's technically good player. He's not. You don't become a bad footballer sort of overnight. And we've seen how good he was at Ajax. I just think certain players don't fit the bill in the Premier League, and I think this is a classic case of it. So for me, if he gets to move in January, and I wish him all the best, and hopefully he can go and reignite his career, because I think that's what it takes sometimes for certain players. They just need a different change of scenery, and I'm thinking he will be a player who will come good again, but obviously it's not going to happen at Man United or in the Premier League.
Yeah, absolutely right. I'm going to come to you, Stu, about Marcus Rashford. Really had an upturn in form over quite a few games now. And I think a lot of that is owed to Benny McCarthy, actually. I think he's come in and has spent a lot of time with Marcus Rashford and has really helped him improve a lot of his game and has certainly brought his confidence back. This is another reason why I absolutely love Ten Hag, is some of the players that we've been consistently worried about over the years have just come out of nowhere and are playing like the players that we knew them once to be, and I'm really pleased with that. So Marcus, just before I'll read a couple of things out before I come back to you, Stu, but he talks about Benny McCarthy. He says it's definitely helped me out a lot. To have them attacking minded coaches is good for us in the squad. He's always there speaking to us about these things. He obviously talks about getting into the World Cup squad. And he goes on to say about playing left and centrally. I think you watch me play on the left. I make a lot of runs into that position centrally anyway. I try and end up in the face of goal, and that's where the goals are scored, so that's where I want to be. But talk to me about Marcus. Obviously, he got player of the match tonight. He was very good, and obviously deserved that. He's I don't know what's changed, but he looks like the Marcus Rashford of old, and that's obviously what we want to continue to see. You're on mute, buddy. Hold
I was what I was saying. He's a funny old player, isn't he, Marcus? I mean, you're playing with him on times, he'd frustrate the hell out of you, and you probably want to strangle him at full time or at half time. But that was last year. So let's roll back forward to today. I tend to agree that maybe having somebody like Benny McCarthy, who's explaining positional sense to him more than anything else, because his overall game is always, pretty pacey, pretty strong, and pretty direct. What you're now seeing with Rashford is an ability to be able to glide into positions at the right time, understand where he is at any given time on a football pitch, which he never used to do, because all he would do is play on the wings, either attack the diagonal or try and get to the byline if he possibly could, but it was more dangerous cutting in and attacking the diagonal. What you're seeing this time with Rashford is a more confident Rashford, but a stronger, fitter, more ruthless Marcus Rashford, and we've not seen that. And that's why he's elevated himself from England obscurity to the World Cup in Qatar at the end of the month, because he's suddenly, for whatever reason, I think he's come on record as saying he struggled mentally over the past 18 months. He's obviously fixed his internal circle at home. He's fixed his, got rid of hangers on or whatever these issues that were causing him the problems are, and he's focused back onto football. And when you've got a player like Rashford who's single-minded, which he is now, and dangerous, which he is now, it becomes a huge asset to any team.
Yeah.
But he would still frustrate me if I was playing alongside him. And Lee's a centre forward, so Lee will know better than me that there are times where you've made that.
Phil is.
Sorry, Phil. Sorry, Lee's a fullback.
I scored more own goals than I did normally.
Funny enough, I was looking at Phil when I was talking, and I called him Lee. Sorry, lads. But Phil will know better than anybody that when a winger is attacking and Phil's made that quick pass and he's got that split second on the centre half and he's got that little bit of space, you want that ball in and you're waiting for it and you're prepared and the ball doesn't come in and he loses it and you're thinking, Jesus, come on. But you get the rough with the smooth with Rashford, because there are times when, he will attack a diagonal and he'll stick the ball in the back of it. So it's just one of those. But I think this season in particular, you're seeing the very, very best of Marcus Rashford. Even when he was having his purple patch in 2019, 2020, you're seeing the very, very best of Marcus Rashford right now. Sorry, Phil.
No. These things happen. It's no worries at all. So, the Carabao Cup fourth round draw is supposed to be live in a minute. So as soon as United's name is drawn out of the hat, I'll try and give that to you as it happens. But bear with me, I'm trying to control about a million things at once. So I'm coming to Eric Ten Hag. He's made some comments. I'm going to come to you guys, Phil and Lee, about that. He said, we controlled the game in the first half by good pressing. Not sure I agree with that. Won a lot of possession, but then did the wrong things. Bad in transition, misses the passes, one step too late. Passing in behind, so we missed a lot of opportunities. Villa played with a high line, so you have to pass the ball behind. We were quite successful in the second half. The problem in the first half is that we had too many touches and missed the moment. That's true. That's why we brought Christian Eriksen on. We've spoken about him already. Great substitution. He's had a couple of poor games. He wasn't particularly good last weekend, and there was another game where he wasn't particularly good. I think it was in the Europa League, but more times than not, he's been sensational and really sort of controls the game. Love having someone like him around. Happy with that resilience. He goes on to say, that's what we need and have to show every game. I was so disappointed and mad on Sunday because we didn't fight. We were sloppy, especially in the defence. And United players have to show 100% discipline. Always says the right things, doesn't he? But sometimes we've had managers that don't say the right things. So it's nice to have that, and you have to grab that anyway. Talking about, obviously we had a familiar pairing in both defence and midfield today that we've seen lots of times over the years. Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof, and Fred and McTominay. So that was rolling it back a little bit, which is quite nice to see, I suppose. Some maybe not. Maybe some people wouldn't be happy with that. But Lee, I'm going to come to you about defence. How do you feel that Lindelof and Maguire did today? I know we conceded 2, one of those being an own goal. The first goal from who was it that scored?
Watkins got first.
Watkins, thank you. I knew his name, just couldn't think. Obviously, that was a great goal, great finish. But how do you feel Maguire did? Obviously, he's had a lot of stick. Lindelof's played a few games recently, but how do you feel they did on the whole?
It's I don't like Maguire and Lindelof together. I haven't done that since last season. I don't like them together this season. I think they're both very, very similar in the way they play. I think they're too slow to work as a pair together. I think Lindelof had quite a solid game to me. I don't think Lindelof did much wrong. Maguire started off okay, but I think as the game went on, he grew a little bit sloppier with his passing, and he looked like the Maguire of old. I just don't think they work together. I don't think as a United back two, you can play that really anymore. You know, I mean, we've been forced a little bit with Varane being out, and obviously he's give Martinez a bit of a rest today. But it's not something I'd like to see on a regular basis, if I'm being honest with you. Probably, again, both good squad players, but definitely not first choice for me anymore. Maguire, he looked, like I said, I thought his passing the first 20 minutes, half an hour, looked okay. You know, his distribution was okay, his positional side, but as the game grew, I think he started getting a little bit sloppy, whether that was like a game time or, you know, like a match sharpness, I'm not sure, but just okay for me, nothing special, just okay.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think Maguire needed a bit of time out. I think he's looked pretty solid since coming back. A lot of pressure on his shoulders, media, fans, the rest of it. And I think you're right. Whilst we bettered our defence massively when he came in, you know, we had Victor there already, and those two did make a solid partnership. I think as time goes on with anything, you get found out. And especially with the back two, the middle two at the back, it is about partnerships. It's not about one individual. I think Van Dijk has carried Liverpool somehow, but he's had a relatively good defender sitting next to him, especially in Konate now, right? But I think you're right. You know, you need a quick centre-back. I've said this, me and Stu have said this for so long now. And yeah, I do agree. I think Lindelof isn't the right man. Martinez and Maguire would probably do very, very well. And I think actually we spoke about this the other week, Stu. I think Casemiro sitting in front of him will help him massively.
That's the key to Maguire at the minute is Casemiro. I think, and Lee's right, by the way. You know, from a positional point of view, both of them are quite mundane together. They're quite Marmite in as much as they don't really suit anymore. They suited a couple of years ago when they had a more dynamic.
Careful, I love Marmite. Be careful.
Yeah, so do I. But they had when Henderson was playing well, he was quite dynamic as a goalkeeper. It suited Maguire and Lindelof quite well because if they couldn't get back or they couldn't sit too deep or didn't want to sit too deep, you got a bit of ready to come out. Was willing to come out.
Yeah.
De Gea had his problems. He's changed the way that he plays this season. Dubravka, get me words out in a minute, is a similar goalkeeper in terms of rushing ability to Henderson. But I think what's happened now, Maguire and Lindelof hasn't played together for that long. It's been Martinez and it's been Varane, or it's been Martinez and it's been Lindelof. It was always going to be difficult tonight when you put our good old friends McTominay and Fred in front of them. There's always going to be issues, unfortunately, and so it proved today. But I think Lee's assessment's absolutely right. I think Maguire For the first 20 minutes, 25 minutes, his passing was brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And then he kind of lost his way in the game a little bit. But again, I think with Casemiro in front of him and alongside Martinez, I think you'll see him, not the Maguire of old, but I think you'll see a different type of Maguire now. A Maguire who will be a bit more safe in terms of what he's been over the last 12 months.
I think just to go on the point, I think, like you say, if the ball gets put over both of their heads, they've got no recovery pace. Say on the first goal when Watkins got put through, it was Dalot, which is having to sprint back because as soon as either one of them, Lindelof or Maguire, they've no change of pace when they're turning around. So like I say, if you've got Martinez at the side, either one of them, at least he's got the pace to recover. Well, when they're playing as a back two with them both together, they've just not got that change of pace to do anything about it. And then they're relying on the fullbacks. But modern day fullbacks, 9 times out of 10, are at the other end of the pitch. You know what I mean? They're not like fullbacks of all what was there to sweep round and recover. They don't do that anymore. That's what I'm saying. I don't think the dynamic as a two work.
And that I agree with. I think Dubravka was probably at fault. I thought he could have stopped the first Watkins' goal anyway. But even so, it was the ball across, that caught Maguire out, and Dalot was there, as you quite rightly said. The interesting thing is, Lee's right. Fullbacks aren't there anymore. Fullback. When I started playing, I guess when you guys started playing, it was a pretty much a 4-4-2 system. That certainly the front six would then play a little bit different. Ultimately, there's a standard back four.
This draw's got feisty. I'm really sorry to interrupt. This draw's got quite feisty, so I'll read them all out for you just very quickly. I'm really sorry. Wolves, Gillingham, Southampton versus Lincoln, Blackburn versus Forest, Newcastle versus Bournemouth, Manchester City versus Liverpool, Manchester United versus Burnley. MK Dons versus Leicester. How are we all feeling about that, Phil? I'll come to you on that one first.
Yeah, I think that's a good draw. Obviously, home tie. I think Burnley, they've done quite well under Vincent Kompany from what I've seen. I've seen them a couple of times this year. They look like they play a different brand of football than what we've probably been used to for the last couple of seasons under Sean Dyche. But yeah, I think that's a good draw. With a few of the bigger teams maybe going out as well. This could be an opportunity this year, maybe of getting a little bit of silverware, which I've said on a few podcasts in the last couple of months. I think it's imperative really that this season we can get a trophy, because I think that's been something that's been missing massively. And I think with the type of players we've got in the dressing room and some of these younger lads, once you get a taste of success and a taste of a trophy, I think that'll be sort of infectious and will hopefully be the start of, of many to come. Because I think, we're in a far better place now as a whole. We're still a little bit short for me in terms of squad depth to really be, challenging on all fronts. But I think that's a really good draw. Looking forward to that game. Actually, should be a good.
That's going to be a great chance. It's just been on my telly. I've just been having a look. Obviously, City, Liverpool, one of them's going out. We've only really got to worry about Newcastle and Brighton, who could potentially. Looking at the rest of the teams, if we can't turn them over, there's something wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. Leicester maybe they're starting to pick up a bit of form, but a lot of big teams were knocked out yesterday in our favour, and it's imperative that we're in all competitions. I know we don't have the squad depth for it, as you said, Phil, but I think the Carabao Cup is something we should absolutely be going for, and Europa League as well, and trying to get to the top of the
quality. Well, I was just about to say, you mentioned the Europa League. Isn't the Carabao Cup final sometime towards the end of February?
Yeah.
Always has been. Whether that's, I don't know what the dates are. We've got it sandwiched in between there, plus our league games. We've got the Barcelona playoff
game
in February. It's going to be a very tough month if we manage to scrape through there.
Well, I think I was reading something the other day. Chelsea, Liverpool, United and City are all going to struggle with the extra games that they've got after the World Cup. And I think a lot of fixtures are going to have to be moved, and it's going to be a very quick turnaround of games throughout a couple of months. It's going to be a nightmare. Great for fans, but a nightmare for clubs, players and the like. Lee, you said obviously you're happy with that draw, Burnley. So let's move on to player ratings. So I'm going to cover just a couple of the substitutions, but we'll start with the starting 11. You mentioned earlier, Lee, or I think it might have been Stu, one of you said that Dubravka should have done better for the goal. We'll talk about him, and I'll give him to you, Stu.
Well, I do think he did. Did he have a great debut? 6.
I think that's a bit fair, actually. Yeah.
I think I was going to go 5, but it was his debut. So, as is his debut, I didn't want to upset him too much because obviously he'll watch this and he won't be too happy with me. So I'll give him a 6.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think
fair.
he could have done with the first goal.
Yeah. No, I think you should have done better there. But first game, sometimes it could be a benefit to you. It could do really well. Sometimes might make a few mistakes, and that's certainly what happened today. Lee, I'll come to you for Diogo Dalot and Tyrell Malacia.
Dalot, first half, I thought played really well. Obviously scored the own goal, but we couldn't really do much about it. You know what I mean? I think there's going to be a lot of 6s today, if I'm being honest. I don't think anyone will more a 6 or a 7, if I'm being honest. I'm struggling.
Try and be as nice as you can, but yeah, no.
Right, okay. I'll probably go 7 for Dalot. Malacia, I'd probably go 6, 6.5. I think he's got the potential to be a really good fullback. I think he's got the right attitude.
I love him.
Yeah, I think he's got the right attitude. He's a young lad. He's got the right character to be a real. It reminds me of Evra. It reminds me of a young Evra. I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
So many people have said this, and it's obviously you don't want to make too many comparisons. Wonderful, wonderful left back Evra, but he does. It's almost like watching Evra, really, a very young Evra. Just the persona and the way they run, everything is so similar.
I just think he's still a young lad and he's still learning his trade and he's learning it in a good place. I think once he gets that footballing brain, which he'll get with maturity and the more games he plays, and I think he will end up shining bright and taking eventually Luke Shaw's place. So, but today I think he did okay. His overlapping did really well. And got in the positions what I love fullbacks doing, the overlapping. There's some nice crosses. Yeah, 6.5 I'll give him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm just going to quickly ask you about Maguire and Lindelof. We spoke about them at great length. So just a quick rating for those two, please, Lee.
Lindelof 6, Maguire 5.
Okay. Yeah, all good. Right, Phil, I'll come to you on the midfield pairing then. So obviously another pairing that we've been used to many, many times over the years, as I mentioned earlier, but they weren't too bad. Probably not as good. Well, certainly not as good as Casemiro. 2 men for 1 position in my eyes. That's always been the case for that. But how do you think Scott and Fred did? And give me your rating for those two, please, buddy.
Yeah, I think obviously first half, them two playing again after so long, it was a little bit of a
nostalgia
reminder. Yeah, a little bit of a reminder of how far we've come, really. First half, I think it was sloppy all over the park, especially some of the passing that was turning over too quickly, and the balls should have been played earlier, and players making runs. I think Fred and McTominay was guilty of that a lot in the first half, but got a little bit better in the second half. I think McTominay obviously got his goal, and he's always industrious. Both players, you can never
could have had 2 at the crossbar as well.
Yeah. I mean, you can never fault the work rate. I just think obviously that little bit of quality that you need to be a Man United midfielder, and then when the substitution were made, we've obviously seen the difference. But no, I think both players probably deserving of a 6. I think maybe McTominay just slightly more for his goal and sort of he's getting forward and obviously played a full match. So I'll say Fred 6, and I'll give McTominay a 6.5, 7.
I thought Scott had a good game, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's okay.
I thought he was one of the better players of the team, to be honest with you.
I think we know his defensive frailties, don't we? We know his defensive frailties, but if we're on the front foot and he gets forward, he does some great stuff.
Yeah, I think obviously when McTominay plays a little bit further forward, for me, he has more of a impact on the game, and you sort of notice a lot more stuff that he does
100%.
because when he plays a little bit deeper at times, you can sort of you can sort of just get some unfair criticism really. But no, thought he had a good game and grew into the game a little bit. I think everyone was under par first half, so a little bit harsh maybe to.
We just pretend it was 45 minutes today. Forget the first half. Right, moving on to Bruno Fernandes stew.
I thought he was good today. So he gets an 8 from me.
Yeah, I thought he was very good today. Missing at the weekend, as I said, don't want to keep beating that drum, but a massive player at the worst of times, to be honest, if that explains it
Brilliant,
a bit more to you.
Brilliant.
Very good. I know we've spoken about him at length, but Donny van der Beek, Lee.
I wish you wanted to come to me with Donny.
I'm sorry.
I don't want
I'm
to
sorry.
call him.
He's my man of the match, Donny.
A very generous 5. Generous 5, mate.
Yeah.
To be honest. I mean,
I think that's the
he
great
didn't do nothing wrong when he had the ball. You know what I mean? He didn't really give the ball away, or it weren't sloppy in possession. But it just goes missing too much, so doesn't affect the game enough for me. 5 at the best.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And from 2 strikers to another, Phil, I'm going to come to you with Martial and Rashford, both with goals today. Martial with a start. How do you feel they played? How do you feel they fared? And then a rating for the both of them, please, buddy.
Yeah, obviously Martial, he's been out for a while. Thought he did okay again. First half there wasn't really much quality service into him. I think he didn't really have as many touches or as many balls into his feet in attacking areas where he could have maybe got a shot off or anything. But second half, I think both Marcus and Martial grew into the game, and once the substitutions was made, there was more opportunities, and he took his goal really well. Martial got in the right position for a tap in, which all good strikers do. So that'll do his confidence a lot of good after being stop start this season. So hopefully he'll kick on now and stay fit and be a big part of what we've got, because obviously we've got a congested fixture list, so we're definitely going to need him. So I'm going to give Martial a 7. I think he was well worthy of a 7. I think Marcus, as we've touched on, he looks to be back to the old Marcus Rashford that we all knew was there. I think his confidence is back. He's playing with a smile on his face. His decision making and his end product's miles better. And I think that's always been his biggest downfall.
I'm so pleased you said that, and I'm so pleased you said that, because I've said that it's his decision making that's been his worst attribute for a long time. So that gives me happiness in the fact that you agree with me, Phil.
Well, to be honest, I think Marcus Rashford's got all the attributes to be one of the best players in world football. He for me, he could be on a par with Mbappe and people like that if he made the right decisions a lot more often, and he's sort of putting himself in positions where he can affect a game, where I think now he's gradually getting there, and his decision making still at times isn't great, but I think the biggest difference is, it's better, but the biggest difference for me is now, even when he makes a mistake, he runs back and he'll chase back. Or
I was just going to say that, Phil. I get the decision making. I massively agree with, but I think another thing, what is massive, what I watch is chalk and cheese from last year, is desire and his determination. That when he does lose the ball, he'll run back, or his head won't go down if he loses the ball. He'll go again and go again. And last year, he was putting his head down and kicking the floor. That has been for me the biggest change this year is his attitude. And we mentioned it time and time again on the podcast last year, didn't we, about his attitude? And it just something seems to have clicked. And whether he's got rid of some of the the things what were holding him down a little bit, away from football, I'm not sure, but I think that's what he's needed, and it just looks a lot more focused on his football.
Yeah, massively. I mean, you can see it looks like a weight's been lifted, and he's playing with that freedom now. And for me, he's only going to get better now. I think obviously he's got a great manager there that's working with him. He's got all them other things in place, and you can see that on the pitch that the way he's performing. So for me tonight, great, got his goal, looked positive, playing with a smile on his face. You know, he's in the England squad, so everything's looking rosy. I'm going to give him an 8.
Yeah.
I think 8 was probably about right for him tonight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely spot on. I'm going to come to 2 substitutions out of the 5. 2 that I feel that would, the other 3 didn't really have enough time or certainly didn't make an impact. But first of all, Christian Eriksen, and I'll come to you, Stu, and then I'll come to you, Lee, on Garnacho to round it off.
Ericsson 7. I thought he was steady when he came on. It was just Christian Eriksen. That's what you like about him. He got us ticking, didn't he? And Casemiro when he came on, I thought he got us ticking. Casemiro offers the solidity at the back, and I just thought Eriksen got us ticking. I thought it was a big lift when Eriksen came onto the pitch. So 7 for me.
I think when you were talking, Phil, about Martial and being provided the service in order to sort of put something away, I think this emphasises the difference in the midfield. As soon as you take those 3 off, Bruno, Casemiro, and Eriksen, the change in creativity, technical ability, and all that is astronomical. And I think it really sort of emphasises your point about the squad depth. We need to get like-for-like players that are able to be as good as what we have in that first 11. Otherwise, we just can't create anything. And it's a real problem. So last but not least, Alejandro Garnacho for you, Lee.
Young and experienced lad, come on, absolutely nailed it. So let's end on a positive. I'm going to give him the top score today. I'm going to give him an 8.5. 30 minutes of pure enjoyment for the fans to watch. You know, there's nothing better than watching a young fresh lad come on and absolutely skip past defenders and have the confidence to take them on. And the pass for the goal was exceptional, wasn't it? Let's be honest. The vision and the pinpoint accuracy, he actually put it there, put it on a plate for him. So absolutely superb, mate. I'm going to give him the top score at 8.5.
Yeah, wonderful. I tell you what, you had me on tenterhooks there, and a really, really rounded off, well explained point. So thank you very much, boys. As per usual, really, really great to have you on. Thank you so much for coming on. Always great to listen to all of you. So thank you very much. Thanks to everybody in the comments. Been loads of you on Twitter tonight. Try and come over to the YouTube next time. Obviously, we want to be able to get your discussions in, talk. As I said earlier, don't mean to repeat myself. Usual shows coming up obviously soon. One more game this weekend before the obviously long break for the World Cup. So make sure you come back and tune in. I will be doing that one as well. So hopefully we can finish off with 3 points at Craven Cottage. But anyway, until then, we'll see you again next time and make sure you tune in.